Hi, everybody. Welcome to Stefan Frank's photo show. I'm going to get started. People are still coming in, but I'm just going to get started. Yeah, I want to welcome you. This is the second episode of Stefan Frank's Photobook Show, not photo show, Photobook Show. As many of you know, I'm Anja from StrudelmediaLive. Thanks for being here today. And I want to, of course, thank Stefan for giving this talk today about 3 quite exciting books. Stefan and I met many years ago when I taught my very first online class ever. And Stefan is in Germany. And he is teaching for StrudelmediaLive. Yeah, I want to thank Stefan again. Welcome to episode 2 of Stefan Frank's Photobook Show. If you have questions, put them in the chat or simply click the unmute button and ask him directly. And the talk will be about an hour long. And yeah, I will hand it over to Stefan now. Enjoy.
Thank you so much, Anja, for this introduction. I'm very excited that you all are here today, that so many of you have come to the show. I hope I can show you some books that make your time worthwhile here, because today we are talking about family albums. Let me share my screen with you because I want to tell you, before we look at the actual books, I want to tell you a little bit about the photographers we'll be talking about today. Some of you may know them. If not, I'll give you some background information from that. You cannot do a thing about families without this quote. This is, of course, from Tolstoy. We will be talking about Diane Arbus pictures, and she phrased it like this: so all families are creepy in a way. This is something that she said in a letter that she wrote to a friend after her first great show at the MoMA, which was some kind of a coming out. And in this show, in this letter, she actually said, all families are creepy in a way, and she wanted to start a new project, and the project will be called Family Album. And this is where all this idea to look at Family Album as a prototype for a photo book, this is where all this comes from. Before we look at Diane Arbus' book, we will look at Masahisa Fukase. I do not know if you all know him. This is from one of his last project that he did. This is from Buku Buku, which means something like bubble bath. So he went into his bathtub and took what was some of the first selfies. And they were all taken in a bathtub. And this was shortly before his career ended quite tragically. You probably know Fukase from this one, from Solitude of Ravens, which is arguably one of the most wonderful photo books that were ever done. So this was published in 1991 and covers a range of time from 72 to 85. He did this book after he did this book, which is Homo Ludens. This is the first book that he did. And this book was a love letter to his wife, Yuki, who he married her, and they broke up after this book in a very, very ugly marriage, which left him quite devastated. And this devastation then led to the Solitude of Ravens. So his work is always about broken families, and this is a prototype of the broken family here. He was born in 34, So he was a war child. He started photographing very early, and he died in 2012. But his career ended already in 1992, when which was basically still the aftermath of his marriage. He was pretty drunk and went into his favorite bar and fell down the stairs and suffered from a traumatic brain injury, which incapacitated him. The book that we will be looking at is work that was published, that was done before that. It is called Family. It is this was published in 1991, so when he was still an actual working photographer. But it was republished recently in 2019 by MacBooks, so it is still available. I will not talk too much about the backstory of Fukase. There is, I just want to send you to a page from Philippe Charrier, a French critic, and he visited the family of Fukase and wrote a wonderful piece about it, Last Train from Shinjuku. So if you want to know more about the background of Fukase, I would highly recommend this piece to you. You can download it for free from his website. The other book that we will be looking at is from, of course, contains photos by Diane Arbus. I also will not talk anything about the biographical details of Diane Arbus. You all know her, know all the stories that are told about her. I think the only thing worth noting here is the letter that I mentioned, in which she mentioned this, which is the only place where she actually talked about her project that she wanted to start, the family album. I will not talk about the background of her, the biographical background of her, because it has been talked on and on endlessly in really awful ways and in really awful books like this one, The Revelations, which contains a lot of gossip, a lot of bad prints, and a lot of stories about her own marriage and how she left her family. So we'll rather not look at that. This one is a little bit better. So at least it contains some facts at the beginning, but it falls apart in the end when she comes to with wild speculations why she committed suicide. But this is the worst atrocity that I've seen about Diane Arbus. This is a movie with Nicole Kidman and Robert Downey Jr., and I still can't decide who I found more vain, more either Kidman or Robert Downey Jr. or the director came up with this awful plot. It contains absolutely no pictures of Diane Arbus. He made up his own pictures and told us that they were from Diane Arbus, but this really is an atrocity of a film. If you have a free Sunday, I hope you spend it with something else. So, but this is what we get from Diane Arbus. We get a lot of gossip about her, but really what all that is left from her are the pictures. So the one picture book that you all probably know is the Aperture monograph, which contains basically all the pictures that are in our common unconscious right now. So all of these pictures are in here. But I would also recommend you to actually go and see the actual pictures. So I had the great chance that I was on holiday in Copenhagen when the great Diane Arbus retrospective was on in the Louisiana Museum, which is near Copenhagen. And this is really something to see her pictures plastered all over the city and have them right next to all these shitty advertisements that are all over our cities and have these pictures in there. So that was really something, and it's really something to see her pictures, her prints actually hanging on the wall. So although I'm a great Walter Benjamin fan, and a great fan of this art in the age of mechanical reproduction and all this theory about the loss of aura, after I have been in this exhibition, I would object heavily against this loss of aura. There is something of an aura to it. So I try to explain this to myself because she made all the prints by herself. So this is why it's so rare that you get exhibitions from her, because you need to have prints that are either by herself or by Neil Selkirk, which is the only printer who has been commissioned by the Diane Arbus estate to make prints from the actual negatives. But this is something else that you stand there and you see, okay, all these prints have been actually touched by her. So this is weird and a little bit fanboy-like from me, but and it is of course a concept, but still, there was something to be there. And looking at these actual prints is a lot of fun because you can look at a lot of details. For example, she worked heavily on the edges of her photos. So she tried different things. Do I have the frame in there? Do I let the frame fade out? Do I crop it? Do I have a passepartout? And you see this how she moved on. You also see how much the actual printing changes how we perceive an image. So if you have a print made by Neil Selkirk hanging next to a print that she made herself, you see an obvious difference, but you do not see this in here. So all this is gone when you have them reproduced in a book, but you see them on the actual silver gelatine printings. So if you ever get the chance to see her pictures, do, even if you think like me, okay, I know every picture in here. I've seen it 1,000 times. It's different when you see it in an exhibition. But we will not be talking about this because we know all this. We're actually talking about this, about a book that is accompanying an exhibition. And this exhibition was a bit of a sensation because there were discovered a lot of around 300 to 500 negatives from her that she did on commission for a portrait session. You probably know that she was a professional photographer, so you could book her for assignments, which a lot of people did at that time. And she was very well connected in the high society of New York at that time because her parents were very wealthy. So she got these commissions to photograph families, and she photographed the Mattei family, which is an obviously pretty wealthy family. And she visited them 5 times. And this is actually the only, what we have from this session are prints of a few of the pictures, but what we also have are contact sheets. And this is the first time that we actually have contact sheets that Diane Arbus made herself. And for me, this is going back to this idea, how do we understand her? How do we understand how she works? It really helps to see, to look at the contact sheets, because this explains a lot how she works. And this was kind of a revelation. And this contact sheets ended up in an exhibition, and the book was made as accompanying to this exhibition. So, but before we look at that, we will look at something which is much, much simpler, which is the family album. And the only thing that was interesting from this awful movie was that it has the setup that the basic idea of the film was that Diane Arbus switched her biological, marital, by law family for constructed family, for her family of outcasts. So the outcasts that she photographed. And if you look at pictures like this, like the 3 female impersonators, which was one of the first pictures that she did when she went on her own, and she did her own work, you see that this idea has suddenly casts all these pictures in a different light. So here she just chose these people as family, and the people that you see on this picture, they also chose who they wanted to be family with. So this gives brings to her pictures a very modern drive that today we see probably much different than people did it in the 50s or the early 60s. The idea that family is the construct. This is for us. This is quite familiar with all our patchwork families, where you can have 2 mothers or two fathers, or an absent father or an absent mother. We have all kinds of patchwork family that gets constructed by these modern times. But at the time when she did this was something new, and this was something that was unheard of at that time. Before we come to her books, we will look at a family album that I picked up on a flea market in Kyoto. And it is interesting to see how this family album that we will be talking about in a minute is how we see this. We don't know the people in there, we don't know the photographer, and still we have some kind of, we look at the pictures and try to construct some kind of meaning out of this. And one way to look at this is to look at Familienaufstellung. I don't know if this is a word that is also used in the English language. In English, it's probably called family constellation. It's a concept from psychotherapists, first originated by Alfred Adler. And this is the idea that when you have a dysfunctional family, you take them to a room and you tell them, please go wherever you want to go and face wherever you want to face. And then the therapist starts to derive from how this family places itself in this space. From there, they try to derive some kind of how the family relations are. If mother and father happen to be very close in this space, then this is something differently as when they go into the room and they occupy different corners of this space. So the whole idea behind this is to read family as some kind of actors on a stage, and the theory behind this is a theory of psychodrama. So the idea that we act out our psychological relations in space. So the idea that everything that we do and the relation that we have are somehow reflected in how we stand to each other, how we relate to each other. And of course, this is perfect for a picture, because a picture does exactly that. It freezes constellations in space. So the whole idea behind this, and the whole idea is how we interpret a picture is spatial relations mirror psychological relations. This is just how we look at pictures of families. But going a step back, we're still in the Photobook Show. So why do we talk about this in the context of a Photobook Show? For me, the family album goes very natural and very easily and very effortlessly to a place where we, with a photo book, we try to get there. So we try to do this. We want to make containers of memories, which a photo album is. I don't know if you want to make a photo book, this is probably how you imagine how your photo book is read, like people sitting together and interacting with your photo book. So it is a vessel of remembrance. It reconnects us to the people we loved. Yeah, maybe also to the people we hated or despised or have forgotten. This nasty uncle that always got drunk on parties and told dirty jokes and no one liked him, but still he was family. So he was in the picture. He's in one of the pictures. It's quite literally a mean to rest time, which leads to this weird thing that you have dead people in photo books, in family albums, which is weird. But this is what this is the basic weirdness of photography, that it arrests time. It gives us a vessel to reconnect with loved ones, and but also to give us a vessel for mourning, for grief, to act on that. And as we are in the photo book, today we're talking all the same, always about identity. The family album is the basic building block of building identity. It shows us where we come from and who we are. And if you remember that the family is a construct, the family album is our tool to construct our families. So in many ways, the family album goes to a place where, very effortlessly, where we, with our photo books, we put great effort into this, that we get there. So, and with this, let me show you how this works. So this is a photo book. So I like to go on flea markets and search through this old through old books, and I found this one. So this is an abandoned family album. It starts out probably can see this. It starts out in 1947. So shortly after the war. And it has these wonderful pictures in there. And immediately when we look at a picture like this, our whole storytelling devices start running. So we see a picture of some kind of organization. Maybe it's military, maybe it's a university, maybe it's a school. We see these personal pictures in here. So we see this, there are 3 persons in here, and there are also, so these are guys and these are women here. So immediately on the first page, everything is set up. So we are at a school, we have boys and girls, and they meet somehow. And of course, the setting is a family album, so we have a pretty good idea where this is going. So they are meeting on a dance. And we see him here. So this is probably the protagonist of this family album. And more pictures of where he comes from. More pictures where they meet. And this contains these wonderful quiet pictures in there where he's teaching. And then here we see the first picture of her. And then we see the first pictures of them together. So we have a pretty good idea where this is going. I really like this one here. I should probably. This one is, for me, this is always a scientist as a rock star with his hair coming down. So by here we have already gathered the idea that this is a love story we're looking at. So they met somewhere. Here there are ideas of family coming up. I don't know who they are. I just know that this is just a beautiful picture that they did quite effortlessly and slide it in here. Also, these portraits here, just amazing portrait that they had here. And then it goes on. So this is his life at the university. So we see him growing up. This is the way we perceive a family album. So whenever you see a family album, you also have this idea of the passage of time. See him with his guys smiling. And this is really, I found this so amazing because he's such a great photographer. So the way he treats the light here, you probably can't see this properly here. The way he treats the light here and places them in this nature here, it's just an effortlessly good photographer. And I don't know if you ever thought about going professional, but he's not, from what we see here, I don't think he's a professional photographer. He's just a guy making a family album. And this also conveys a certain mood of how the societies at that time were constructed, how strict everything was. And here we see the first preparations for a marriage. And what I really like about this photo book, which is actually, it's just a family album that was abandoned and ended up on a flea market, that it becomes so surreal. So suddenly you have this picture of a turtle in there. And what does it mean? I have no idea what it means. It's just in there. And there's this, this piece of money that is in here. And then you have these beautiful pictures of her marriage that were done by a professional photographer. And please keep this in mind, because the professional photographer that we see that has done this photo, we will meet him again in Fukase's book. Then you see her again. And then there are these weirdly wonderful, surreal pictures of her in the middle of Japan. So here she is in a traditional attire. And then the next time you see her with a cuckoo clock. And then you see the Mount Fuji. And then you suddenly have this weird combination that talks about things that are getting lost. So the page where the photographs are lost. And there again, always good photos. They are always at the bottom here. This is a wonderful photo here of her and a guy riding on a bicycle. And then you see a double spread like this, which you cannot construct. But if you see this in a photo book, this is just a great double spread. You have the first time that this tiny dog is appearing here. So obviously, at one point in time, they bought a dog and a cat. And suddenly you have more protagonists that are coming into this photo book. But then it talks just about beauty, about the beauty of nature and the beauty of this flower arrangements. And here we encounter more of these, if you think about the psychodrama, how to interpret these. This is not her, not him, but obviously the father of one of them. So and he's standing in front of this. So he's signaling with this that he's the head of the family by placing himself front and center of the image. So always is the way these portraits are constructed, even if they are not constructed consciously, they always signal something. You see more pictures of her. It's just how their life unfolded here. And then again, they are visiting this father, and this is a beautiful picture that you see here, because it holds so much tension. So you can even in this double spread, you can see how happy she is here and how tense she is here, and all this is effortlessly conveyed in a family album, in a photo book. And then something strange happens. So here we have a pretty linear telling of a story. And then there's a gap. And suddenly a child appears. And this is what happens with family albums when you don't know the actual story. You start fantasizing what happened here. The child is not young anymore. So she's probably 2 or 3 years old. So between here and here, there is a gap of 2 or 3 years where no one took photos. So what happened here? And then things get farther, and you get these photos where she looks a little bit, here in this photo, she looks a little bit more serious. So she looks, if you compare it to the early photos, she looks changed. And again here, she looks, I don't know, she starts looking not as happy as she did before. And again, weird surreal photos of animals in here. And suddenly you see the dog, so the dog has grown up. And this is how they changed over time. So her face is grown up. So she's growing up and she's becoming more serious, and he's also becoming more serious. And if you compare this with this photo before and after, so this suddenly conveys the idea that something has happened here. So, but it goes on, and we're making more vacation shots. And again, this is a, if you know the history, and I only know the history from flipping through these pages, suddenly I have a photo like this here, where she looks really serious and a little sad. And here the photographer even uses this this construction to place her into a corner. And then this is heartbreaking because suddenly it stops. So this is the last page here, and the photographer does a wonderful thing that I hope we will eventually know how to do when we construct a Photoshop, because it uses this photo here as an outro photo, which is a great photo, because there's a road that leads to, I don't know where to here, because this is where the book stops. And this is a great work of art that just was developed completely unconscious. So I do not know if the photographer had in mind, I want to make a great work of art, but he used his family album as a storytelling device. So now let's look at someone who has been using photography as a storytelling device for all his life. So this is Fukase. And this is family. So here he uses this, if you remember this this photo book here, he uses the same strategy. We don't know what this is. We don't know what this photo is. So we don't know what this house is, what we see here. Why is there a man with a horse standing in front of this? It's a totally absurd picture. Actually, that you're given that you have no idea what the story is about, what the story of this picture is. And then you have these family photos. And I don't know if you notice it at the first time when you look at this, because there's something off in this photo. And there is one person that doesn't belong here. So and she's dressed differently. So this is, I would tell you the story because it helps you to understand what we're looking at. There is, at the end of this book, there is a short biography from Fukase that he wrote himself about his family, about his upbringing. And this is at the end of the book because this frames all the pictures completely different. If you don't know the story, you can interpret this picture. The interpretation of this picture is that his grandfather and his father, they both owned a photography store. So they were professional photographers who were taking photos like, here we're coming back to the other photograph. They're taking pictures like this. So his grandfather did that and his father did that. So they owned this, this photo store. And he started, so he was the oldest child, and he was destined to follow into the footsteps of his father and to take over this photo store, this photo store, and take on the life of a portrait photographer, like, and do photos that you see in this picture here. But he went away. He went to Tokyo to study. So he started, when he started out as a photographer, he used the equipment that was owned by his father to do his portraits. He used them to make family portraits like this. But he always brought friends with him. So friends like this actress, and he placed this actress in aligned to this family. And you get weird pictures like this, where everybody turned away and only the actress looks at you. And this, as a great fan of Japanese horror movies, this brings up a lot of weird movies here when I see a constellation like this here. And he's playing with these tropes. So he's just permutating to all the weird ways that you can place your family here. And here again, you see them aging. So you see his father getting older. You see this is his sister. You see his sister getting pregnant. You see the children of, these are actually the children of this sister. You see them growing up. You see his brother getting older. You see his mother getting older. And then coming back to, if you connect this to the idea of Diane Arbus, who thinks family is a construct, Fukase is also constructing families here with these actresses. And you get funny pictures like this, where he just makes fun of the idea of a family picture. So Fukase was destined to take the photo business of his father, but he did not. So he went to Tokyo. So he left the family, and his father did not take this up very good. So they had a fallout. His father was very strict. He was very strict about morals, about the moral code that you have to adhere to, and they had a lot of conflicts in there. And here you can see in his face that he is not actually approving the path that his son took. But he was in it. So he was in on this idea of constructing a family or reconnecting with his family. So he posed here with Fukase himself in this to show some kind of, whenever we look at family photos, we're looking for resemblance, we're looking for similar faces. Where do you come from? Do you look similar? Does your body look similar? Did you inherit your gestures? And here Fukase is starting on this almost scientific journey to try this. How does it look like? Do you see resemblance only when you see people of the same family, or do you have resemblance between your family and not your family? Do you have resemblance between you and your lovers? Or do you just make fun of all this? But then he gets back to this idea of family. And here we see the sister who was pregnant in one of the earlier movies. She got her she got a child. So here goes back to this typographical approach of this. So, and Fukase was an intelligent man, so he's, of course he had he has seen the work of the Bechers, and he has placed these kind of photos as a resemblance of this. And of course he made fun of the Bechers with this. And here he comes back to this, the other tradition of the Japanese photographer to make pictures that you can show when you're dead. So there is a tradition in Japanese photography that you go to a photo studio like the photo studio his father has owned, to have your picture taken and shown at your funeral. So he made these. He made the funeral pictures for his parents, and he came back to this idea of the portrait. And there is a gap between here, between these pictures and these pictures. So this was after the decision that he will not take over the business of his father. So he came back, he had the feeling that he wanted to reunite with his family and want to take up this photographic project that he started 10 years ago. And again, making traditional pictures and then making fun of making traditional pictures like here and like the kid. So this is what always amazes me about Fukase, that he's not only a great photographer, he's also has a sense of humor, and he has complete control over what he's doing. So, and here is where the whole project takes a turn to takes a sideways turn. The child of her sister that we've seen in one of the few pictures, it actually died when it was 10. So he just continued on this process. So there is this is the gap that I was talking about. So between this picture and this picture, there are 10 years. So here he reunited. So he went through his own family. He created his own family. He had a breakup in his family. He was aging. He was feeling his own age. He was feeling his own mortality, and he went back to his family and reconnected with his family, reconnected with his father. But here we also see we see his father has aged significantly. So he has become from being the patriarch of the family down to what age does to you. But these photos always have, although they talk about very grave things about death and dying, about the deaths of children, about mortality, about his own mortality, they still retain a sense of humor in all of this. And this is what amazes me about this book. And they show his attempts to reconnect with his father. And this is for me, this is a central picture of this photo book, which is just a great picture that talks about so much about this reconnection, about his age, about himself, feeling his mortality, about the mortality of his father, and it's just a great picture. And then he does simple family album pictures. And again, here, when you see this, when you keep this idea of Familienaufstellung, of family constellations, you see different relations popping up. And then, of course, his father died eventually. So you can just continue this project until you only have the photographs left sitting in these pictures. And this is the last picture that he took. So this again is the photo store that we've seen at the beginning. Here it comes to an end. So after the father died, for a brief time, his younger brother took over the business, but eventually went bankrupt, and the photobook store was the photo store was sold. The camera that that his grandfather used, that his father used, and Fukase used to make these photos, is now in the display of a clothing store. So it's just a prop that is used for selling stuff. And then it's interesting to see how this book is constructed. So it's constructed with, you don't know anything about this. So when you read this, when you look at these pictures, you have no idea what you're looking at. So you're wondering about why these people pop up here, why suddenly what happened to the family here. And here you have at the end of the photo book, you have an index that says, okay, this is the way the book is constructed. This is how these are the people that you see on the photographs. You suddenly see these are actresses that he brought onto the set. And then comes this essay, and then comes another essay that frames Fukase into the history of Japanese portrait photography. Family portrait at the side of mirror. So, like every book from Fukase, this is just a must-have book, like Ravens. And so you're still with me?
Oh yeah.
Okay. The last thing that I want to show you is family albums. And for me, this was, as I said, again, I will start at the end. So this book, the same as the exhibition, it circulates around the reprints of these contact sheets. So, and this was actually the first time that we got contact sheets from Diane Arbus. And for me, this is an amazing thing to look at because you can see how she constructed her images. And in order to understand this a little bit better, I want to show you a picture that you probably all know. This is one of the pictures that you see in the Diane Arbus Aperture monograph. Famous picture of a Christmas tree that is probably the most eerie Christmas that I've ever seen in my life. And of course, you see, she was a professional photographer, so she was commissioned to do family portraits and portray family life. So you cannot come up from a photo shoot with a family with a picture like this. You just cannot do that because otherwise you don't get your fee. You don't get paid. It's so simple. So it's interesting to get a little bit closer here so we can actually see that. So it's interesting to look at these pictures that she actually did simple, normal, straightaway pictures of Christmas, that she was totally capable of doing that because she had to, because this was the way she earned her living. And you see that sometimes in these pictures that these ideas that she had, they start popping up, like being far away from something. So it's about Christmas. It's about this, in this picture, it's about this Christmas tree. But the Christmas tree is somewhere in the corner. And there is a person in here, but she's far away from it. So actually the picture does not work. But the idea was in there. So it's already in these contact sheets. So, and for me, this was some kind of a revelation because we are so used to seeing these masterpieces of Arbus, and we also always think, okay, this is just fallen from the sky. So she's just so gifted that whenever she snaps the shutter, everything just magically falls into place. And these contact sheets always say, okay, no, this is not the case. She had to work for this. She just had to go through a lot of shitty pictures, like we all do. And the good thing about bad pictures is that sometimes these bad pictures contain some core of this. And for example, this picture here, this contains the core of the Christmas picture. But to me, it's always interesting to see, okay, she was also totally capable of making affectionate pictures like this, which talks about the bond between a father and his child. And it's just a straightaway picture. It's not a Diane Arbus picture. You will never see this in one of her exhibitions because it doesn't work as a Diane Arbus picture, because it talks about straightaway simple connection. So it's really, really a simple picture, but you could do that. And in this context, I find them totally fascinating to look at them, because they're so, she was just a working photographer. You see her getting closer in this row. You see her getting farther away. You see her trying out different poses. So it's just the working photographer. And she was a working photographer, like we all are. And there's a simple picture like this. You never see something like this. She would just not use them for their for exhibitions, because it's just too simple. But then she started hunting around. So she started hunting around with weird poses like this here, where you see some things creeping up. So she does this weird framings. You see that she's having some kind of so she's using her the thing she always does. She's photographing rituals, so the rituals of the American society, and she's following these. And then when you do this for a long time, you see these kinds of constellation, but you see that they are not lining up properly. So you have a photographer in here, and this is a weird constellation that we sometimes may see in a Diane Arbus picture, but it doesn't work when you have a photographer in here that does this photo here. You also have this picture here that simply does not work, because it's framed awkwardly, it's cut off awkwardly. You have this flash here, and most of all, the model is smiling, which you never have which you rarely have in a Diane Arbus picture. So she's just documenting, straight away documenting these rituals. But then she's starting, then there are weird things starting to pop up like this here. Or like this undocumented moment, or like this absent face. You see, they are the elements of the Diane Arbus picture. They are there, but they're not coming together. And then she starts hunting around. And she's looking for, of course, she's doing a job. So she's documenting the social life. She's documenting the children. She's documenting these mother-children moments. She's documenting the party. She's making portraits of the people that she was commissioned to do. And again, here, we're coming back to the Familienaufstellung and the constellations here. So he is turned to her, and she's turning a little bit away on some of the pictures. Does that mean anything? When we look at the picture, we are inclined to read something into it.
Stefan, could you say again over what period you photographed his family?
This was in, these were 5 sessions. So she shot around between 300 and 500 photos of her. It's not clear how many she actually did, because not all survived. And she did it before the Great MoMA show. So it was in 67. And I just wanted to show you, so she's hunting around, she's looking at people. So who could be interesting for me? And then she found her. And then she said, okay, we placed her in this Christmas scene, then we placed her alone, doesn't work. And then we placed her in front of a new background. And there you see, okay, now this is a Diane Arbus picture. And suddenly everything is working by taking a lot of stuff away. She's got the right distance. She's got the right pose. She's got the right weird look. And suddenly we have a Diane Arbus picture. And she needed around 300 to 500 pictures to come to this one. And this is what this book is about. Just briefly, to show you the other pictures in the book. It contains a lot of the her commissioned work, so the work from her when she worked for Esquire, I think, Esquire or Vogue. It contains a lot of family pictures, and here the meaning of family is the expanded family. So the family she chose for herself. So the idea of family as construct. But it also contains, it frames her in the tradition, in an American tradition of family pictures. So it contains pictures by Louis Hine, or Walker Evans, of course, also great photographer of family. But also of August Sander, so probably the greatest portrait photographer that we had in Germany before the war. So, and this is, for me, it has a lengthy introduction here that talks about how she fits into these traditions of family photography, how she fits into the tradition of the family album. But it also contains the idea of a constructed family. So for me, this is apart from all the ethical issue that we have with Diane Arbus pictures. Did she intentionally seek out what were at that time called freaks? Did she become friends with them? I think just by looking at the pictures, this is a different approach to framing all this show. So if anything good comes out of this awful fur movie, is the idea that Diane Arbus chose her own family. And she was trying to produce family albums. And this gives you a different spin, even to look at this. If you look at this, the photos that you see in here that we all know as her relatives. So this is her family that we're looking at. All of this. And suddenly everything makes sense. The love that with which she looked at all these people. She looks at them because they are all her family. And I don't know, I have no idea if this is correct interpretation or if she thought really just wanted to become famous with her pictures. For me, it is an interpretation that works for me. And maybe looking at the family albums and then looking at the pictures, maybe it works for you too. And this is all I have for today. For you.
This is all I have. I would love to know which of the photos from that family, the family picked. That would be interesting to know, because it was a job. So we don't know which ones they ordered.
We don't know. What we know is that there were legal issues surrounding this exhibition. Mm-hmm. There are contact sheets left out of this because people found themselves depicted in a way that is not favorable for them. So they did not see themselves in the pictures, and they certainly did not want to have them published in this book. They were shown in the exhibition, but they didn't get the publishing rights. So it's kind of a mixed bag how she fared as a professional photographer.
Are there any questions about any of the books? Fascinating that that Japanese photo album that you found at the flea market made it all the way to Germany. When you think about it, how far that family traveled.
That is weird. I don't know. it's so many stories that pop up just by looking at these pictures. So that you find them in a flea market. So that means they have been abandoned. So somebody tossed this away. So what has happened to this family? So what has happened to the relatives? It's always when I look at family album pictures. What happened to her? Was she happy?
Yeah, that was interesting how you described how, I mean, obviously she aged, but it was also that her expression changed over time.
Yeah.
So you really spent a lot of time studying them. Thank you so much, Stefan. This was amazing.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure for me to have you all here. So thank you very much for your patience with me. Just overrun.
Greta, are you having a question?
Oh, no, I'm just saying thank you.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of these flea market photo albums. I have a number of them I've collected over the years, and I find them fascinating. They're kind of haunting. And then the big question is, why are they always too bad? Why are they left behind? How does the family let that go? You know, and so there's some mysterious things about that. But I find that the pictures and the travels and the albums themselves, the way they're constructed, are all very interesting, with different little corners, and just the way the pages are. Most of the old ones seem to be on black paper.
Yeah.
And some have tipped in glassine or textured transparent paper to separate the images. So over the years, finding some that have very interesting covers made out of leather or made out of wood, you know, depending on the year they were made. But I'm a big fan of them, and I have a number of them. They're pretty unique and interesting to see where people travel. What they were thinking. Huh?
You should share them sometime. I would love to look at them.
Yeah. And I'm making sort of a history about my mother, and so the family, and diving into all the images from our family, which is also kind of fascinating, and seeing things that were surprising, you know, when I wasn't born. So things, you know, my mom and dad, and, you know, sort of their journey. So anyway, thank you so much. That was fun.
Thank you. Yeah, it always has something tragic about it, because they spend so much time with this. They took so much care to do this, and then it gets abandoned. So we always try to think, okay, there's something tragic must have happened. But Fran, you wanted to say something. You wanted to ask something.
I think Becca also has a question. Edward, can you read that out?
Yeah. Stefan, what are your thoughts on how the family album is considered so precious to many people?
Well, I think really I think families, so from my experience, families are work. So they are just work. So even the legal, the family that you're bound to, it is work to connect to people. It is work to get to know them, to restore some kind of understanding with them. And I think a family album is such a tool to do this kind of work, to reconnect with the people, to get to know them, to know, to remember them, to understand something about their identity. So what makes them out? So what is important to them? Like even a simple picture like this, it tells so much. It tells, okay, we are part of this society. We are part of this group of people, and somehow we belong here. We are all similar, but we're also a little bit different. So this is why we put so much time and love into these photo albums. At least for me.
Fran, did you have a question? But you're muted. I'll unmute you. Let's see. Does that work now? I tried to unmute you, but maybe it's not working.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I was going to say that we all have, I think these albums represent how we want to be remembered. And if you walk into someone's, I went through a period where I was living in the country and I was going to people's houses and everybody seemed to have the same pictures on their tables in the living room, these nicely framed family pictures. But you would sometimes walk into someone's home and think, wait a minute, why do they have my pictures on their table? Because we all seem to find the same kinds of moments. That's what I think is so extraordinary about the Fukase album you showed us, Stefan, is really thought this through in a way that separates it from most family memorabilia.
Yeah, because it has both. It has both these very traditional pictures where you see, okay, we come together as a family, we show our unity, we show our relationships. But it also has things like this, which just say, okay, I'll make fun of this because we have a broken family, because all families are creepy. Like Diane Arbus said, we are creepy in a way. So we have this fallout between Fukase and his father, and somehow it is in there. Because we're complex, families are complex beasts.
Yes, but I think most people who make family albums try not to show that in their albums. And that I think is what's so interesting about the Arbus pictures, because when she's hired to make someone's picture, she has to make them look good. And when she does them on her own, she makes them look real.
Right. That's a good way to say it.
I'm not sure. When you look at a picture like this, is this girl?
Is this real?
Is this real? Because it's a Diane Arbus. It's a Diane Arbus shot. So she makes people really, really weird. She looks like she was just dragged out of a sea, and she has drowned. So this is a very, very weird picture. So is this real, or is this just something that Diane Arbus brought with her to the set?
I don't know. How many teenagers do you know, Stefan?
Do they all look like this? I don't know if they
have their moments. They have their moments.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else for Stefan? Well then, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Stefan, for this second episode of your Photobook Show. Very exciting. I really enjoyed it.
Here.
When is the next one? We don't know that yet.
Next month, I guess, and we already have a scene for it.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, and I hope to see you at the next one in a month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Great. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice evening. Have a nice afternoon, wherever you are.